Welcome to the 2018 budget hearing for Tuesday, December 5th. This morning, we begin with Public Facilities Management. So, Darla, you are up.
Good morning, Commissioners. Darla Reardon, representing Public Facilities Management. And joining me today are Carol Oshevsky and Jim Russell with Pizzuti Solutions, our owner's representative. We have asked them here today to provide updates on two major PFM initiatives, construction of our new corrections center and a new forensic science center, and this agency's request for their assistance in updating our facilities master plan. PFM's mission statement and goals are delineated on this slide. This is the long version indicating how we deliver our services and manage the county's properties through the efficient, cost-effective, eco-friendly, and innovative utilization of available resources. This is the summary, providing property and construction management services to create a sustainable future through building preservation practices, green architecture, and smart energy-efficient design and technology. PFM is an agency with duties and responsibilities which support all county offices and agencies and their public users. On a daily basis, whether delivering general services such as housekeeping and event space management, or when developing and implementing long-term strategies and projects, we continually collaborate with other county offices and agencies in the delivery of essential professional services. Today we will touch briefly on our accomplishments in 2017 and, more importantly, focus on our goals and plans for 2018. Now to sustainability accomplishments. Your core principles emphasize our commitment to promote good stewardship of our environmental resources and sustainability. PFM has many opportunities to be a leader in this service arena. Many of the sustainability program activities are those PFM promotes on an annual basis. But in 2017, we expanded our efforts with both new initiatives and by repackaging some existing actions. On slides 5 through 8 is comment on some of the 2017 sustainability program accomplishments. Notable on this list of actions was our collaboration with Fleet Management in support of its goal to grow the use of electric vehicles by installing additional charging stations. We installed stations for utilization by both the public in the county in our parking garages, at Fleet Management for servicing those electric vehicles, and on the Sheriff's Mound Street surface lot. By year end, the county will now have the opportunity for 26 vehicles to be charged simultaneously, and the public spaces have been regularly occupied by visitors. We worked at augmenting the level of participation in all our recycling programs, both by our building residents and visitors. Success requires continuing promotion and education of staff on these activities. Over 450 tons of recycled materials were diverted from our landfill, reducing our carbon footprint by taking the equivalent of 366 cars off the road. And at the same time, the county received revenue from the resale of recycled paper, cardboard, and metal, and from the sale of discarded equipment using the internet auction site govdeals.com. PFM's operations group is the agency's lead in providing the professional services which impact county employees and building visitors on a daily basis. They are constantly faced with the challenge of balancing the need to respond to everyday requests for assistance and unanticipated issues, while also forecasting and scheduling necessary preventive maintenance actions on what are both new and aged facilities. On slides 10 and 11 is comment on some of the 2017 operations program accomplishments. Driving our direction and efforts with this effort was the acquisition and ongoing installation of new enterprise resource planning system software. Securing the software was critical as our aged system could no longer effectively support construction projects, maintenance of our existing facilities, and the management of our daily operations. The new software satisfied a critical need for PFM that offers efficient work order and project management and better reporting. We will complete the deployment of the remaining modules in early 2018. As you can see, over 29,000 work requests that PFM responds to as the county's property manager for now almost 4 million square feet of workspace is substantial. PFM has also increased safety training and safety audits during 2017. Your core principles emphasize our commitment to promote job creation and economic development. The construction and building preservation projects executed and managed by our in-house property management group has been a job generator in the last year, offering many living wage opportunities. The list of projects is a combination of large and small dollar activities, from repaving projects to performing critical building maintenance to major building projects. On slides 13 and 14, we summarize our major construction and building preservation efforts undertaken in 2017. While not an all-inclusive list, here are some sample 2017 projects that reflect the level of engagement and effort that PFM exerts to satisfy the needs of county offices and agencies. Many of the projects you are familiar with, but some of the most critical building preservation actions are behind-the-scenes activities. We are always taking steps to extend the life of aged buildings by performing necessary preventive maintenance tasks and upgrading our building systems. Studies indicate that the cost of performing building maintenance activities quadruples when they are unreasonably deferred. As one example of a low-profile but key project, PFM has aggressively pursued the testing and repair of any issues associated with the smoke and fire damper systems installed in our facilities. Repeated testing and repair of these building features addresses a critical life safety issue. As I stated, these are not always apparent projects, but essential to making the best use of space and equipment and proactively managing the core infrastructure of our existing facilities. Also perhaps understated are the technology initiatives which PFM implements and maintains to minimize potential telecommunications and IT downtime. On slides 16 and 17, we recap our major technology-based actions. PFM focused on upgrading technology to help agencies improve efficiency in business processes and enhance service levels for their customers. The cost to provide even basic telephone and data services is substantial. It requires vigilance in continually auditing our accounts and identifying savings opportunities. PFM's telecom group has reduced expenditures by 35% since 2013 by utilizing our in-house expertise and new technology. Our phone system is generating opportunities for county agencies and offices to take advantage of the enhanced capabilities of new technology. I do want to publicly acknowledge the assistance of Adam Luckow, the Commissioner's CIO, and the Office of Management and Budget, who have been very helpful with us on all of our IT initiatives. While we are proud of our 2017 accomplishments, PFM has shifted focus to our new 2018 goals in delivering best-in-class services to support county agencies and offices. PFM has submitted a results-oriented budget that responds to the board's strategic policy initiatives. PFM will continue in our role as your lead agency in promoting sustainable practices and policies. Here are a few of the 2018 initiatives that we will be pursuing. PFM will be your lead in working with MORPC in the implementation of its Sustainable 2050 program. Operations initiatives. Listed are a few of the initiatives we will be advancing. A critical task for the PFM management team is continually attempting to train and identify new staff who are familiar with the increasingly complex building systems that we employ. Our systems are like comparing today's state-of-the-art automobiles to the cars of 40 years ago. It takes advanced skills to maintain and repair today's technology. Construction group initiatives. In a moment, I will ask our Pizzuti representatives to comment on the construction of our new correction center and new forensic science center and the need to update our facilities master plan. Perhaps the next highest profile project for PFM is to advance the planning, design, and construction at Memorial Hall to allow for the proper and respectful display of plaques and artifacts previously housed at Veterans Memorial. You are also aware of the necessity and the accompanying cost to modernize our elevators in this tower, and we are committed to improving wayfinding for visitors to our downtown complex. We will continue to address a critical list of building preservation actions which are not showy but are imperative. Technology-based initiatives. Again next year, we will be leveraging new technology in support of securing cost efficiencies and enhancing customer service for all county offices and agencies. Commissioners, in 2018, PFM is committed to exemplifying a strong, at-your-service philosophy to our customers, continually striving for operational efficiencies and diligently managing maintenance and construction projects to completion. We understand our primary role is to provide support services in a professional and responsive manner that help county offices and agencies successfully carry out their mission. I'd like to publicly thank our PFM staff, some are here today, for their continued hard work and dedication. Now I'm going to turn it over to Pizzuti to discuss the construction of our new Corrections Center and new Forensic Science Center and the need to update our facilities master plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Darlene. Good morning, Commissioners. Again, I'm Carol Olszewski with Pizzuti Solutions, and with me today is Jim Russell, Executive Vice President of Pizzuti Solutions. As Darla's mentioned, we're the owner's representative for the project, which means we're overseeing the overall management of the design teams, the construction folks, and helping the owner, both the County Administrator's Office and the Commissioners, and as well as the Sheriff's Office, make important decisions. All right, jump forward. The first rendering you've all seen before, which is the new elevation of the Corrections Center, which will be built on the near west side on Fisher Road. This project will ultimately provide housing for the entire Franklin County jail population and allow the closure of the downtown jail as well as the facility on Jackson Pike. With the opening of phase 1 of this facility, the Sheriff's Office will be operating under a direct supervision management model, providing a more normalized environment for inmates that's intended to reduce recidivism by providing services that meet the needs of all inmates, but especially those, especially those with medical, mental health, and behavioral issues. Construction's underway, finally, with site work having started in late September, and foundation work actually beginning this week, weather providing, probably not today with the rain. Bids for steel and concrete were open last week, and the bulk of the building structure was advertised for bids beginning last week. By mid-spring, all work is planned to be awarded. It's important to note that this phase 1 project includes all of the building core services to support the full build-out of all phases of the building. The Forensic Science Center will replace the current county morgue located on Cannon Drive on the Ohio State University, a building that's over 40 years old and has very limited facilities to meet the needs of today's coroner's office. The building will house both the morgue as well as forensic laboratory facilities and is intended to meet the needs of the county for at least another 30 years, if not longer. A new site on Frank Road was selected for the Forensic Science Center, and design work's underway. The autopsy and forensic labs are designed to meet or exceed all contemporary standards and allow for expansion in the future. A key addition to the design is the enclosed sally port, which allows transport vehicles to be loaded and unloaded in a secure and enclosed environment. And the new 56,000 plus square foot building will also include much needed conferencing space that can be used for training and meetings on current local health concerns. As I mentioned, this project is still in design, the design development phase, with plans for bidding to begin next spring. While much smaller than the jail, the construction includes very sophisticated mechanical systems to handle the sensitive work that occurs in this building. I'll turn it over to Jim.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. Now, the last item that we wanted to touch on in support of PFM is the potential need to add two new judges that are coming through the legislature. And so part of the process, if you remember, in 2012, as part of the development of the new jail, we had a facilities master plan that looked at not only the administration or the office tower, but also the Judicial Services Building and the new courts building. With the potential addition of the 2 new judges, part of that effort would be to revisit that to make sure all of the assumptions that were made in 2012 are holding true, the staffing needs, the requirements for vertical transportation, all of those updates are met. And then to help manage through the design and construction and potential implementation of those, adding those 2 new judicial positions to the county. And then the last element of that plan is to look at what will happen with the downtown jail once that's closed. We know you're going to have a facility next door that is a little bit more complicated than just either remodeling or taking down because of the connections. If you remember, there's that service tunnel. So there are security and utility connections back over to the new Common Pleas building that need to be considered, as well as higher and best use for that site. So we're proposing to support PFM again in really addressing these issues that we hopefully coming around through the legislature.
Questions?
A lot going on.
Very busy, yes.
You know, I was struck, Darla, by the number of requests you have taken for services, 29,000 requests for service in a year is quite a lot.
The group is very
And-
busy.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. And with the campus expanding and using monies from the general fund, which are scarce, you know, it is a big job. And with the technology changes and everything else, how do you see organizing to be able to meet the needs with budget constraints that we have? Do you see issues with that? And I mean, just with the internal campus, first of all, with our campus.
That's why I will say our new enterprise resource planning system is critical to being able to maintain operations and generate efficiencies. Now, with the 29,000 work request in this new work order system, will allow for faster, more accurate work orders to be processed, better oversight, better reporting, so that we can make sure that we're resolving these issues in a timely manner. From a training perspective, one of the items we have listed for 2018 is really pursuing additional training as it relates to building systems and the complexity and the sophisticated nature of today's building systems, for example, through the manufacturers of some of those building systems to ensure sufficient training for our staff.
That's good, because it's going to be critical. And I agree with everything that you said about taking care of the facilities and managing the maintenance of the facilities is critically important. I know in past boards, previous to the last 10, 12 years, there were deferred projects and deferred maintenance, and we played catch-up for a long time. Are we on track now? Did we catch up so that we're on target with maintenance?
We are on track now. However, if there were to be general fund cuts, it's exactly as you indicated. It would have a very negative impact, particularly as it relates to having to defer building maintenance or building preservation projects, as in the past. As I mentioned earlier, the cost of performing those maintenance activities quadruples if we're unreasonably deferring those. It will just end up costing us more in the long term if we were forced to do that, if we're not properly and proactively maintaining our buildings. And we have been doing that. I believe County Administrator Wilson can confirm that our historical forward-looking approach of committing committing annual funding to exactly what you're saying, the building maintenance and building preservation project has been one that the bond rating firms have taken into consideration and appreciate in assessing what rating has been applied to Franklin County. So, you know, it will be important for us to be able to continue doing those very critical building maintenance, building preservation activities.
Sorry,
Please.
Tim.
Please.
Jim, just maybe generically and briefly, can you give me your thoughts on which projects was that? The sixth floor of this building as it relates to the two judicial, how do we place the two new judges? We got one coming in 18, but presumably we have one coming in 18, or in January 19, one coming in January 2021, presumably. I don't see any reason why the legislature wouldn't be giving us those two new judges in the juvenile domestic relations branch. So one, that project, where do you foresee them going? Where's there the room to put them? Are we, we're gonna squeeze 7 judges into the 6th floor? Are we gonna have to reconfigure? How's that look in your mind? One. Number two, Commissioner Brown's hopes and dreams and desires notwithstanding, what do you see us doing with the jail and that piece of property, that piece of real estate? Do we tear it down? Do we what do we do there?
You're
in
talking about the downtown.
the downtown jail? What do you see us doing with that piece of property right next door? Number two, and number three, what do you think is the future of Dorian Park and that piece of property over there? We've just kind of let it linger for a long time, and so give us your thoughts on those 3 things in 60 seconds.
Or less, right?
My 60-second answer is that's part of what the study would tell us.
Yeah.
My quick answer. I think to the first point, when we did the 2012 plan, there are opportunities within existing spaces, we think, to fit all the judges. The challenge will be, we know that how do you centrally locate those facilities so they're easier for the public to use, and I think it will create a bit of a stepping stone where we'll have to do some occupied renovation in order to make a move, in order to make another move and another renovation. So I think part of that, it is going to be a bit more strategic, as well as addressing and mirroring how do we handle some of the vertical transportation issues to see, are there opportunities that maybe you relocate some of the more active spaces that are requiring elevator transportation down to a lower level, or maybe even the potential addition to stairwells or some other corridors that could help with some of that traffic. So I think we really need to get into it. The good thing is we had created a matrix of your building, so we know how pieces and parts can fit, and we have much more intelligent folks on staff that kind of help that. But it has to be done in collaboration with the users, and that's part of what we would do with the plan. What was the second question about the jail?
Just what should we do? I know Commissioner Brown has some really great thoughts and ideas of what we ought to do over there, but do we tear that thing down and start from scratch? Do we, can it be renovated into something else? Is it too far gone? What needs to be done over there? When, in your mind, I mean, is it just such a bad facility that it has to be torn down? Can it be saved? Can it be turned into something else? I mean, what's the cost associated with it? It would be too expensive to renovate? I mean.
And again, without the benefit of a full amount of work, it will be a very challenging building to renovate into a public use without spending a lot of money. I think you've all been in
That's the kind of answer I was looking for. My guess is it's gonna be super expensive to
Yes,
renovate that building.
And the bigger issue for the county is gonna be how do you maintain some of the required connections or even improve some of those connections? So it could be a selective demo, so maybe you're taking down the upper floors, you're leaving some of the lower floors and they're incorporated into the campus. It may be a full takedown and then you're preserving the connections under the ground under Mountain Street. It is going to take a lot of investigation. There are great opportunities that the parcel lends itself to, both public and private, and how you may incorporate some of the other services that you want to do long-term, or even the potential to bring in some private investment. I think the location bodes well for that. The building itself and the connections will be very challenging. Much like Dorian Park. I mean, Dorian Park, part of the challenge, I think, with Dorian Park, it's wonderful to have that kind of green space. It's, you know, are there ways to either open it up, incorporate that space, activate it more, and make it an updated area that services the whole campus area. But it is it's an underutilized site, but it's that balance of keeping green space, keeping public connections and activities to the services that you're providing governmentally. So I think there's a lot of work to understand what's best for the county, and propose a couple options for you that you can look at, either activating it, what could happen even further into the future, but a lot of opportunities.
I think my personal opinion is that it's fantastic that we have green space that memorializes one of, I think, the truly great county commissioners of all time, Mike Dorian. At the same time, I think it's, you know, a shame that it's such underutilized, poorly planned and thought out piece of property that it is. It would be great if we could memorialize Mr. Dorian in a way that the public actually would use that property in a much better way than it's done now. That's the reason I asked the question. Nobody goes over there. It's not inviting.
It's not, it's kind of a dark place, but,
But if you think through, it's not too indifferent to the old wall that used to be on Mound, and you really didn't have the connection of people. Now with the graduated stairwell, and you see people sitting and eating lunch, actively using the space, you do feel it as a true public space, and that's not going on right now.
And I'll give you a whole year into 2019 budget hearings. I'll ask you about 50 West Mount Street.
Okay.
Commissioners,
All set for that one.
Kenneth Wilson, County Administrator. The Dorian Commons site is on County Administration's radar. Just last week, we had the opportunity to participate in a building evacuation drill, which afforded the opportunity for a lion's share of all of this building's residents to visit Dorian Commons. And in doing so, I looked to my Deputy Administrator, Chris Long, and said, you know we got to do something about this, right? We have a inactive water feature that I'm not proud of right now. But again, it's about priorities, timing,
That's right.
and resources.
There's-
So that site is one that we look at different times of the year, particularly when we decorate it for the holidays and how many lights we may put in that area, or during the spring and summer when planning is what you would anticipate. So that area truly could be of greater benefit to not only the downtown population, but particularly our employees. As you know, in the Midwest, we have vitamin D deficiency, so we need to look at entertaining a space to where people may be able to get out and enjoy those few sunshiny days we have in Central Ohio. Even though we love this place very much, but so it is on our radar. And as Interim Director Ridden said earlier, we are always looking at sites such as Dorian Commons when we look at our CIP. While we plan for multiple years, we look at each current year and how many resources that are available in order to fund our capital activities, even though we're looking out multiple years, 4 or 5 years. And that's an important thing, that practice that we continue to do. And as was pointed out, whenever we have communications with the rating agencies, they like to be updated on what we're doing. And I also appreciate the fact that you all, a few weeks ago, authorized me to be able to enter into a contract with Pizzuti Solutions to update our master plan to take into account the space that we would need to create for additional judgeships. We've been in communications with the Domestic Relations Court and assured them that they will be active participants in that process, because they're very interested in making sure that they're at the table and that we don't have our planning experts determine what's best for them. So we committed Deputy Administrator Long and I that they will be active participants in that process. Thank you.
Good.
As for the correctional center, you know, it is my hope that we will be able to do what we need to do to get the entire project done. I think we would save a lot of dollars by closing both facilities. I'm not sure what we would do with Jackson Pike once it's, and that's yet another facility we'll need to talk about, but it is clearly an issue of resources and our county resources to leverage additional dollars and bonding capacity to do it. And my hope is we will be able to do that. But, you know, we're moving forward, and Darla, I really appreciate the wayfinding piece. It has been a
Definite
process.
challenge around here.
Thank you.
So, I'm gonna focus on a couple of things, and I think we can make this all kind of one question with a couple pieces built in. One, I'm just curious, how, and forgive me for my ignorance here, but I can still claim I'm new for at least for another couple of weeks here, I think. But how is it, can't think of the right word. Is it a regular thing for a director to appear with contractors to talk about a budget? Or is this something?
Commissioner, I asked that Pizzuti come because we have these two big outside projects with the jail and with the correction center and the Forensic Science Center, and because we had the commissioners had hired an owner's representative to really lead that project.
Yeah.
So because of those two projects, that is why we asked them to. Why I asked them to be part of the panel.
And we've had community partners and others on many occasions. So
Okay.
while they are our owner's rep, and I guess technically, since a contractor, that may be a little bit unusual.
That's the word I was looking for, unusual. Yeah.
We have had a table full of community partners in the past that we contract with, or we grant dollars to, in the past. So I guess it's, may seem unusual, but it's not necessarily unusual.
Okay. So that leads to my part B question. I figured that would be the answer. So, I know we don't need, this may not be the right forum to get into it, but I think it's really important for the context of my next question, and that is, just in a nutshell, in the 60-second version, what does it mean to be owner's rep? I get it, but I'm trying to understand in the context of them representing the budget conversation with PFM too. So I want to make sure I'm getting it. And because, quite frankly, we've talked about the jail being built and what they represent, but we've actually talked about 2 or 3 other things that Pizzuti is now representing with us as well, you know, that I think we should be a little more explicit about in terms of what owner's rep means. And then I have my final question, which is budget related.
Go for it. Commissioner Boyce, an owner's typically a large facility operation like the county has can manage very effectively the types of projects that Darla listed in her presentation and have a process in place to do that. But it would be unusual for any facilities department to take on the management of projects of the size of the morgue and the jail combined. And so we see ourselves as an extension of staff to do the day-to-day management of the project, partnering with PFM and with the Deputy Administrator's office on that so that we can help run interference, help work with the architects and contractors and bring decisions back to the county as needed. But not burden the facilities staff with the day-to-day management of a project of that size. They have day jobs. This would fall outside of what a normal facilities operation could handle in their regular day jobs and do the 29,000 work orders that Darla talked about. So that's different than our role on the master plan, which is a totally separate continuation of work that Zudi did years ago. The owner's rep is distinct that way, and we live and die by the start and completion of the project.
Okay, good answer. Which leads me to my final question. And I mean, I think one of the most important things you brought up was the master planning. And we've talked about that, commissioners, we've talked about that not just from the jail and the old site, we talked about it for the Board of Elections, and we've talked about it for JFS and for other things. And it begs the question of the need for a broad stroke, long-term and short-term master plan. And so is that what we're looking at? Because when you are referencing master plan, you're referencing things are generally kind of queued up, as opposed to things that are not queued up and are part of that long-term. Because, and when I think master plan, and again, in my investment banking world, you're always dealing with master plans and maintenance deferment and rating agencies and whatnot. And so I think of safety issues. I think of, you can only defer so much maintenance before you have to be thoughtful about the potential safety. And so it's really a very serious and very long-term and very constant review, investment, and engagement. And so one, can talk about that, but then two, are we budgeted in the 2018 budget, because it doesn't really break it down, this document, is there a budget specifically set aside to cover the big master planning, not just the courts or the button up of the old jail facility or anything, but the broad stroke master planning that allows us to look at 373, Dorian Commons, or was it called Dorian Commons or Dorian Park or
Dorian Commons.
Dorian Commons, all of those things encompass. So is that in the budget? Is that planned for? Is that part of the master planning conversation?
Jim, do you want to first start by
Yeah,
just
also
the master plan
yeah,
process?
The initial process, what we're working on is really dealing with this downtown complex. In the past, when we did the initial plan, it was sitting down with all of the stakeholders. A big part of that was the planning for the new courts building, to understand what was going to stay on this side of Mount Street, what could get incorporated in, how the offices interacted. And so we created that master plan of just these complexes. And that's part of what will be updated now, is to make sure that, because you are dealing with a majority of new staff throughout all of those different agencies and boards, to make sure that the objectives are correct, the staffing projections are correct, and the budget items are corrected, and what they're looking to do is all updated. So it's really going to be dealing with this with a focus on how do we properly plan for the addition of the new courts without disrupting everything else that's been going on in the Judicial Service Center. So it is focused just on this area, not all of the other facilities.
Yeah, so I figured. Yeah, and so the part B to that then is to Director Reardon, what are we doing to talk about the long-term, the big stroke master planning, and are we budgeted for that, or are we budgeted just for the conversation that Pazit just laid out?
What's currently in the budget, and Zach, please
Yeah.
feel free to jump in our construction portion of our budget, there's about $935,000 for what we call first trimester CIP projects. Those were delineated on the slides, including the design of wayfinding, the veterans plaques, build out. Those items come in the first trimester CIP. Then midway through the year, we would meet with OMB and talk about a second and third trimester funding for that. From the domestic court standpoint, there's currently $5 million that'll be in the PIP to fund that build out. We're also obviously funded for any cash outlays that are anticipated as part of the Public Safety Center, from the Public Safety Center Fund, meaning the new Correction Center and the new Forensic Science Center. Zach, do you?
And that $5 million is represented on page 12 of your brief and contained within the Permanent Improvements Fund. And typically, the approach we take is, as interim director Redden stated, is through the operating budget, we fund the first trimester of capital projects, those life and safety projects you referred to, Commissioner Boyce. And we target the spring of each year to look at picking up the remainder of the year, the second and third trimesters. And what has been a financial planning practice for the county since I've been involved and engaged is what drives how much capacity we have in that second and third trimester is how well the budget is holding up. How much can we use of available cash and still stay within the cash balance goals that are set by the county. So that's what drives that process. And when we talk about looking at our master plan, then we're looking out as far as 20 years. So again, it's a matter of building that into our long-range financial forecast as to how much we would plan looking out through 2023 based on that updated master plan when we get it.
That's helpful. The last question is a small question. So the way you generally raise those funds, though, is via chargeback to the agencies? Because I noticed that, a great portion of the budget was general fund, which, again, to the public, the sales tax, so we cut there could be a safety impact on our facilities, and we have to be very, very thoughtful about that. But on the non-general fund section, it seems those are charged back to the agencies. So in other words, when you do work on their facility, the agency pays for it. Is that correct, or am I reading that wrong? So in other words, then do we have to raise that money from the general fund and put it there as commissioners to cover those improvements?
Commissioner, in some cases, we do charge back the non-general funds through lease arrangements that Public Facilities puts together and presents, usually on a 3-year cycle. So, for example, Child Support Enforcement has a lease, Public Defender's Office has a lease, a few other non-general fund. But I think primarily most of the building occupants are supported by the general fund in terms of Treasurer's Office, Auditor's Office, Clerk of Courts. Where there's opportunities that maybe there isn't a lease chargeback, we do have a cost allocation plan where some of those costs are incorporated. However, by statute, only certain agencies are required to pay the cost plan. So we've worked with some electeds to be able to agree to pay that throughout the years, but not everyone is required. And in some cases, we would not charge back a general fund to reimburse the general fund, since just that's a lot of extra work. But I think in most cases, most of the funding for public facilities is related to general fund in terms of the day-to-day operations.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, while the lion's share of funding is from the general fund, places where we typically would charge back for facility improvements would be the REA fund and Auditor's Office, the real estate fund, and for various clerk of courts improvements, we may bill back to auto title fund as a couple examples. So.
Yeah, I was only making that point. That's the last thing I said. Only making that point because it's important that the public understand that if we don't extend the sales tax, what the impact means, because this is internal stuff to them. They hear it and it sounds like it's our internal stuff, but there really is an implication to the public in terms of safety. I was just trying to illustrate the general fund connection to that and the possibilities that lie there within. So I think you all responded appropriately. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you all.
Thanks, guys. Next is sanitary.